My name is David Harrison Greis. This is the Greis Report, and welcome to the show. Tonight, we're doing a little bit of a special episode. So there is another podcast here from Staten Island called Left in the Forgotten Borough. We had a meeting a couple of days back, and we recorded this meeting, and it was a great discussion on Jimmy Kimmel and the freedom of speech. And I would really like for everybody to learn about their podcast. So let's cut to that video now. All right. My name is David Harrison Greis. I run the Greis Report podcast. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
I am Andrew Savage. I am the co-host of the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast.
And I'm Nancy Richards, and I am also the co-host of Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast.
All right. It's very nice to meet you. Left in the Forgotten Borough is an amazing podcast from here in Staten Island. They do a whole broad variety of topics, mostly including local politics, but also national politics. So, would you like to tell the audience a little bit about what you're doing?
Sure. So I'll get started, and then Nancy, you could jump in too. So Nancy and I have been friends for many years, and we were colleagues at one point. We're both teachers. And we were both also involved in politics. I'm more on the operative side. I'll let Nancy talk about the ways that she's been active. Uh, and we were talking over a glass of wine one night, and we were having these political discussions, and we just said, well, more people should hear this. More people should absolutely hear this. And so we came up with the idea of Left in the Forgotten Borough. And we also want a voice to people who may not fit the MAGA image of what many people think Staten Island is. And so that's why we also started this. And for the last year, we've been doing this podcast, and we've had some really great conversations both with each other and some really interesting guests.
And I'll add to that. So in this conversation, one of the things I'm also, besides a teacher, I'm a stand-up comedian. And one of the things that it just got my goat a lot was seeing everything about Staten Island was kind of this same picture of this like Italian, like, hey, like it. And there's a lot more to Staten Island. And there are something in regards to like, having Italians but it was the only thing I saw. And I was like, there's so many other people that live on this island. There should be other voices in regards to how people see us. Yes, we are a conservative borough. We have, we're more red, but we also have a lot of left voices. We have a lot of different voices. And we're more of an onion than people think we are. So that's kind of how that conversation came up with me and Andrew. And politically, Andrew and I call us political geeks. We would go down to DC and, do like political geek week. So that's kind of where that came up. And we decided that something that we could do together was kind of do a left, perspective on Staten Island, something that you don't normally see. As far as my background, I come from more of an activist background. When I was at the College of Staten Island, I was very active in the student protests throughout CUNY to reduce tuition. There was a CUNY building takeovers at City College in Hunter. I was part of that CUNY-wide group and its CSI. I was also president of student government. I was also the only known socialist elected on Staten Island. So and so I was very active in my early years in college, and then got into stand-up comedy to kind of take a lighter approach and started doing that. And this is a way for me to remain active.
It's very nice to meet you. Very nice to have you both on here. So just a little bit of a background on me so that you can get it out to your audience as well, and so that they can learn a little bit more about me. My name is David Harrison Greis. I have a master's degree in special education from Hunter College. I was undergrad there in 2007 to 2011, and I participated in a lot of student protests. That's where I got my feet wet when it comes to politics. And then I decided to volunteer to work for one of the campaigns out here many, many years ago. And I just got really, really intrigued, and then I kind of fell away from it for a while. I joined an operation where we're working with children with special needs, specifically regarding behavior, but that's not really my main goal with this podcast. I decided after seeing everything that was going on and the kind of slide into totalitarianism that we've been having over the past couple of months, I needed to get active again. I needed to get back in the scene. So originally, I started my social media accounts 3 years ago as an activist for the environment. We successfully ran a group called Aquatic Ally and shut down an operation called Froggy's Lair that was selling 1 gallon tanks for aquatic frogs. That's inhumane and cruel, so we got them shut down. It was a long fight, a year and a half, but we won. And now, after feeling that kind of success, I realized let's scale up. So now I'm here and I'm doing this because this is what really matters. Because in the end, this is our life. This is all we have. And we have one world, one planet, one people, and we need to do everything we can to save it.
Yeah, well, and democracy is a verb, it's not a noun. I think that what the past decade or so has taught us is that uh, it's a lot of the things we've taken for granted are things that we have to ourselves keep fighting for and keep working towards. Democracy is not just a spectator sport. You have to get involved. You have to, and in whatever way you can, through a protest, through a podcast, through uh, supporting local candidates, whatever the ways that you think that you could make a contribution, you should do
Through
that.
voting, through
Yeah.
voting, in regards to that, being aware of who you're, who's running and what they stand for. Um, there's a lot you have definitely isn't it's a you have to participate in democracy. So great. So how did you find us? I'm just curious in regards to you reached out to us, and I'm curious what got you that.
So I just randomly decided to start this podcast one day, and then my producer he actually came to me and said, "Hey, there's another podcast from Staten Island that's also left leaning, and you should work together with them because they are amazing and their content is fantastic, and they seem like they're on the same side with you, and they agree with you on a lot of different things." So I listened to Left in the Forgotten Borough, and listened to a number of episodes, and I am a regular listener now. I have a lot of respect for the work that you're doing, and I think it's amazing that you've been able to interview so many people and actually get the word out there because Staten Island really is a lot more complex than people give it credit for.
It definitely is.
Well, and thank you for that. And we've had a lot of really interesting guests. We've had every Democrat, well, not every, but most of the Democratic officials on Staten Island have come to our podcast at some point. Anybody who's running as a Democrat, usually they'll come to us for as an interview, with the exception of Mike McMahon, although I don't think he's had as
He's
competitive.
not running for anything.
No, and even when he does, it's not competitive lately, so it's not. And so,
And we haven't necessarily reached out to him either, so
yeah, and he should,
and we haven't had the opportunity to actually
yeah.
get
And
everybody. So there's a lot of people we still need to talk to.
yeah, we want to talk to the Democratic mayoral candidate here in New York City. We've been trying to get Zohran Mamdani for the last couple of months. But we've had interesting conversations, not just with politicians, but we've had them with regular people who are contributing to Staten Island in their own way. We just had a fabulous public health expert on last week talking about the craziness coming out of the Federal Health and Human Services Administration. Uh, And the big goal, I think, for us, especially, we started this before Trump was reelected, but we want to teach the normal folks, the ones out there that are like us, we want to teach them how to navigate all the craziness and to understand and know that there's community out there who believes in democracy and who wants to uh, make positive contributions.
I also think one of the great things about starting this podcast is that Andrew and I actually have become more active in the community because one of the things that we're doing is we're showing up to events, um, and so I find that it's enabled, like for myself, to become a little more active, as active as I can. Like there's only so much time, but I also find that this podcast also enables because I do have a lot of hats and it enables us to do something, at least once a week to talk about, some issues and point out things that are going on. So it's a way of contributing, and That's something I really like about doing this podcast. And I get to hang out with my friend Andrew a lot. So
Yes.
it's,
Yes, and Nancy and I were colleagues for many years at the same school, and we've been friends ever since. I think about 15 years or thereabouts. Uh,
yeah.
and so we have a lot of the same. We know a lot of the same people. We're pretty active in the community. I was more on the operative side. I was president of the Young Democrats of Richmond County for about 2 years. Uh, I was a member of county committee. I served on a couple of campaigns. I worked for the Speaker of the City Council many years ago. And so I have some experience that I bring just from the insider part of this, and knowing that the kind of conversations that take place. And it's been really helpful as far as getting guests on. There's already a rapport there, so they know that it's not, I don't believe in the kind of tabloidy stuff. I don't believe in just having a gotcha thing. I want to have a conversation about it. Even if I disagree, I would love to have just a conversation. I'm not there as the clicks almost, although we welcome any and all clicks, but that's not the goal.
Understood. So speaking of teaching the regular people and everybody who's involved to kind of participate in this process the way that they can, one of the things that I myself have actually seen play out over the last couple of days, and this was a very fast situation, but still developing, is with Jimmy Kimmel. So on my social media platforms, especially on Threads, we gathered together the entire movement to cancel their subscriptions to Hulu and Disney Plus and write the cancellation reason why they're doing it as Jimmy Kimmel was fired. In particular, I wrote, "You bought Star Wars and then betrayed the rebellion. Shame on you." These things, there's a team that has to review them as part of their quality assurance process. So they do see them, and they did eventually disable the text boxes. After they lost all that funding, Jimmy Kimmel was invited to go back on the air. Now, Nexstar and Sinclair are still not showing it, but all the rest of the affiliates are. Did you manage to catch the monologue?
I
I
did,
did.
yeah, I did, and I managed to stay up, which is unusual for me. I usually don't stay up that late, but it was interesting. And what I
We were off. Yeah, it wasn't a school night, so we were able to stay up.
we're off. And so the one thing found interesting was, even I'll get to the monologue a little bit later, but I saw this morning, Trump wanting to silence and Brendan Carr wanting to silence Jimmy Kimmel actually elevated him far more than they ever thought. And they ever thought before all this, Jimmy Kimmel's average viewers were average something around like 150,000 a night, which is nothing. And it's really representative of where broadcast media is, kind of a dying industry. But
Well, the president accused ABC of being a political arm of the DNC and that was illegal and that he was going to go after ABC. He goes, if you think 15 million was a lot, wait till you see how much I'm going to get now. So,
well, getting back to the ratings, Jimmy Kimmel's monologue last night had 7 million viewers. It's 7 million viewers from something like 175,000 to 7 million. And so this was something that I think elevated Jimmy Kimmel, and really, if Trump's goal
I'll be
was
right there.
Trump's goal was to silence Jimmy Kimmel, then he failed spectacularly. In addition, I think free speech was definitely the one thing that the left, the right, the center came together and said, "You're not going to do this." I mean, I was surprised over the last few days to see people like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and Joe Rogan, uh, and all these figures on the right come together and say, "Well, we might get our jollies out of this right now, but eventually the pendulum will swing back to us in a way that's not favorable." And so I'm happy to see uh, that at least free speech is something of a unifying force that brings people together to say, you're not going to stop us.
And that's very important because what people are starting to realize very slowly is that if people like Jimmy Kimmel are allowed to be taken off the air, and like you said, it's not even like he has a massive audience, although now he definitely does. His audience has grown exponentially as a result of all of this, and that kind of backfired for Trump.
Yeah.
But the main goal is here one day, because fascism doesn't just stop with the straw men. They're going to come for everybody else too. They're going to say, I don't like what you said this date 20 years ago. Now you're off the air. So if the right doesn't band together and say, all right, enough is enough, Trump will eventually come for them as well.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And their concern is that if somebody on the left comes back into power, they could use these same authorities onto them.
I thought last night with Jimmy, I was very verklempt through a lot of it. So was Jimmy Kimmel. I was, we were all curious, like what he was going to do. I liked, how he thanked everyone. He recognized his, comrades in, in the talk show world. He thanked the people who protested, and he thanked people who he didn't necessarily agree with him, who also had a voice, like Ted Cruz. And then he became Jimmy Kimmel and made light of his mafia thing, which I loved. It was very serious, but there was also pretty funny. I thought De Niro was great. I thought they had a funny skit. I also thought it was very hard hitting. Like I really felt like, I was thinking of I Mama said knock you out. Like I thought he really threw a good punch. Um, when he claims that, these actions are anti-American, I thought that was a really interesting choice of words. Because I felt a big mirror was thrown back at, you know, at the president's face in regards to what he's been saying and accusing people of when he's the one who's actually doing it. And I thought, as opposed to Jimmy going, you did this and you did that, he didn't say that. He reflected the actions, of what's been going on and how it's wrong. I thought it was excellent. I really did. I thought it was a win for free speech, definitely, and democracy. I thought it also proved it was a win for people speaking out who didn't like what was happening, and that if you do say something, your voices are heard. So I thought it was a win-win, and so congratulations for that.
Yeah,
And
well,
he did a great job. So
and I was saying, I'm surprised that the Epstein files haven't done it yet. The encroaching autocracy in other ways hasn't done it yet. Attempting a coup on your government doesn't do it yet. But this idea of free speech, that's something that everybody uh, seems to come together on, from Tucker Carlson to the most liberal left-leaning Democrat. They are coming together and saying this is unacceptable. You cannot have a government official like that Brandon Carr say that you can't say anything, or they won't approve a merger, or they will revoke your license. That's insane.
I I agree. One of the good points I thought that came out from what he was saying was what he felt was a common bond, because one of the issues is in regards to how we're so kind of um separated these days and polarized. He mentioned in regards to people who didn't agree with him, who kind of came together on this issue. It's like, no, people have a right to speak out. Even other podcasters who he wouldn't necessarily, that people said, no, no, no. When it comes to this, we come together. And if we're going to look for a way to heal, maybe that's a way to do that, in regards to maybe start with speech, start with the First Amendment, and from the left and the right. And I thought that was a good common way for us to come together as a nation. So good for us.
And not to say that there hasn't been any gaslighting on the right about this. I mean, I've seen on Abby Phillips' show a lot of the conservative commentators there saying, "Well, it was ABC's decision, and so we had nothing to do with it." Well, ABC was definitely influenced by the mergers of the local affiliates and the FCC's role in that, but they were also thinking of their license, their broadcasting license. Brendan Carr went on Benny Johnson's podcast and basically threatened to pull their license. And so this is going to be, and so a lot of the right is gaslighting about this, but then some of the bigger voices said, we should be doing this. And I think I agree with Nancy that that's a really good place to start if we are going to save this little experiment of ours.
That's extremely important because, like I said before, and like you're saying, everybody needs to be united on this particular front. If we lose the freedom of speech, we lose the ability to do what makes us American, and that's speak out when we see things that are going wrong. America has kind of earned this place in the world, or at least it had this place in the world stage, as kind of being like this worldwide healer. Like, we can come in, we can fund your program to help save your country. We can help you with this, we can help you with that. And that's the way that things were going for a very long time. And now we've been withdrawing from the world, and it's been accelerating. And then Donald Trump went before the United Nations and said all your other countries are going to hell and all this other stuff. And it's like, these are supposed to be our friends. You just blew our standing on the world stage. So now people like Jimmy Kimmel, when they get up there and they're just saying, hey, we got to reach across the aisle, they look like the leaders that our politicians can't be.
Well, maybe some people will eventually start to see that this man is not a good leader for this country and use the power of voting. And hopefully, Andrew, you was mentioning yesterday in regards to elections. And I'm really hoping the midterms bring out a strong showing and kind of
We also have to make sure midterms are free and fair. I mean, I am not.
exactly. Well, that has to happen as well.
Yeah.
But, I'm thinking for Republicans who are afraid to speak out because they're going to get primaried or, they have to follow Donald Trump. Maybe if they see that the fact that people do not like this type of leadership and will vote Republicans out, maybe they'll, will be less reluctant to follow the dear leader as much as they have. Like, take our own Staten Island, Nicole Malliotakis. We're putting a lot of pressure on her. And even though she's kind of like, following the Fuhrer, um, I, she, put enough pressure, she might get voted out, you know? Um, and a lot of people are putting pressure on her. And I think once Republicans begin to see in this midterm that if you have to go to the polls, people have to, they have to vote in the midterms. But I'm really hoping the midterms have a strong showing, which then proves that this man is not as powerful as he thinks he is.
Well, that
And that's a really important message to all of you out there in the audience. Make sure that you get out and vote the midterms 2026. It is how we take back America.
and well, in November 2025, we also have elections here in New York City and around
Hmm.
the country, and New Jersey and Virginia are also having gubernatorial elections. And the one thing I wanted to just say, as far as connecting free speech, Nancy and I talked about the Charlie Kirk murder on our podcast extensively, and of course, we both condemned it. We both said that political violence has no place in our country. But oftentimes, things like this are used as a pretext to clamp down on civil liberties and to clamp down on people's constitutional rights. We've seen that in both Red Scares. We've seen that in Nazi Germany with the Reichstag fire. And so that's what I was really concerned about. And of course, the human part of it, somebody was killed, there's a family that's left behind, but I was also concerned about what this would mean for the future of democracy, because these things are used as a pretext to clamp down on civil liberties. We've already seen the Attorney General say that we're going to go after, quote, hate speech. That was something she had to walk back because, again, people sort of reacted negatively to the idea of anybody from government saying we're going to come after speech at all of any kind. And the pretext part of this is a really concerning part for me, is that hate speech for them is going to be defined by anybody who disagrees with them. And so,
Yes,
and those,
absolutely.
and the full force of the federal government may be used to clamp down on podcasts like all of ours.
And we saw that something happened this morning. That was a bit of a breaking news item today. I'm going to be talking about this later on myself. There was a shooting at a Dallas, Texas ice facility. And Kash Patel put out on Twitter this picture of bullets with the word anti-ice written on it. So I don't think we have enough information one way or another to make any decision or any call about what happened, but it's very clear that they're trying to spin this in the same way that we saw the other one spun. No one deserves to lose a life to gun violence, and gun violence is too much of a problem in this country. But nonetheless, Kash Patel is out there live tweeting all the pertinent information about the investigation, which to me breaks the chain of custody. I mean, now you could have anybody sprawling anything on these bullets, putting them anywhere.
Well, he did such a great fucking job on that last one. I mean, he had two. We got him. No, we don't. We got him. No, we don't. And then so he and I'm Sia. I'm in a luxury restaurant in Manhattan while you all work to solve this. And so uh, I don't trust anything this FBI says. I don't trust anything that comes out of this administration. The only places I would trust are maybe the local police. I would really trust what they have to say about this because uh, they are somewhat removed from politics. Everything that these people in the Trump administration do is motivated by expedience politically.
Yes, absolutely. Any final thoughts?
Um,
On Jimmy Kimmel, on we never have final thoughts. So,
oh, it's still go. Well, I think, listen, I think that we have to all, I think, show the powers that be in media, in the business sector, in our political leaders, we are going to fight for all of our rights, not just free speech, but we have to fight for due process, which they've slowly eroded. We have to fight for free and fair elections because we know that they're already trying some fuckery when it comes to the free and fair elections in the midterms with gerrymandering states like Texas and Missouri and Indiana to give themselves a slight edge. And so we have to fight for all of those things, and it's not something that we could sit back and say, well, we hope it goes well. We have to actually be a part of it.
Absolutely. So thank you both so much for doing this with me, and I look forward to speaking with you again in the very near future. Andrew, I know that you're going to a very exciting event today, so I do hope you have fun with that. And Nancy, it was a pleasure to speak with you, and I'm very glad that we all got to meet.
yeah,
Um,
thanks for making this happen.
of course, thank you. So if nothing further, this has been an awesome experience, and I look forward to doing it again really soon. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And to the audience, thank you all so much for watching.